Let's see what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Picard Season 2, which is available to watch on Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime. My name's Keith Isles, and as always, I'm joined by
Pete Neely.
And we are both film and TV enthusiasts. And today we're going to have a spoiler-filled conversation about episode 4 from season 2 of Picard, titled Watcher. So, Pete, you watched it more than once, did you?
Yeah, I think I watched it 2 times fully, and then I half watched it at least 2 other times, and I went back to a couple of points to rewatch them too, to make sure that I caught things correctly. But yeah.
Right. I may be leaning on you quite a bit then, Pete, because I've got to be honest, I've not been as thorough. I did watch the episode when it dropped, but I haven't had time, just life at the moment and content to actually go back and visit this one. But before we kind of delve into it, just a little bit of, you and I try and avoid spoilery news, but likewise, there is news out there, it seems, weekly at the moment on the Star Trek franchise, amongst many other franchises. And we got news this week that there is actually a date now in the diary, a release date of December 2023 for the 4th Star Trek film in the Kelvin timeline. There's been some news about this. Again, not sure how much of it is true and how much of it is fake news, but apparently this has been green-lit. Only things we've heard confirmed are apparently, according to feedback, when audiences were asked whether they wanted a sequel to Star Trek Beyond, which was out in 2016 now, I think, or whether they wanted a complete reboot of the franchise, the answer was that they did indeed want to see more of the Kelvin timeline crew, led by Chris Pine as James T. Kirk. So they've gone ahead and greenlit this with J.J. Abrams producing. And J.J. Abrams has been public to say that the role of Chekhov will not be recast out of respect to the late Anton Yeltsin, who played him in those 3 movies and sadly died a few years back. But most of the other cast have indeed confirmed their roles, although there is some controversy as whether Carl Urban will actually be available to do it, as it clashes with him shooting the next season of The Boys for Amazon. In which he also has to have a beard. Now, of course, it won't be the first time we've seen Leonard McCoy with a beard. If people remember the beginning of Star Trek the Motion Picture, but I don't know. But anyway, I'm waffling. Any thoughts on this, Pete? Any thoughts on this piece of news about another Star Trek film?
I have a lot of mixed emotions here. I mean, I'm curious about who's writing it. There was always talks about that with Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek script that was circling around. So I'm wondering if they're going to use parts of that one, and I guess we'll know if there's lots of shots of people's bare feet. And then I kind of wish they would recast Chekhov. I don't know what you gain from dropping that character now.
Well, in my head canon, in this timeline, he's already gone off to join the Reliant.
Maybe that's what they'll do. Yeah.
In this timeline, everything's happening earlier than it did in the original timeline. You know, we've even got the Enterprise A in this, right?
Yeah.
So, Yeah, that's kind of my headcanon is
Eh,
he's already gone off to join the Reliant crew. I
so
don't know.
then is Sulu going to be on the Excelsior? I mean,
Well,
who
that was
knows, right?
later though, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
later. But
Well, we're moving stuff up. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I've heard in terms of creatively, I've heard the name of Matt Shackman being involved as the writer on this. Matt Shackman was the showrunner on WandaVision, I believe, another show
Yeah.
that we've covered on this channel. So if you're new to the channel, yeah, please check out some of the other things that we've done on here. But I've heard his name mentioned, and well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, we're inundated with Star Trek content once again, for good or bad, I guess. I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be interesting if we, because of the success that Marvel have had, and obviously Spider-Man No Way Home, which again we've covered here, but I wonder whether they could do something where they have some sort of mixing of parallel timelines or something, and you get this crew interacting with counterparts of theirs from what we're seeing on the streaming shows at the moment.
Yeah.
Don't know. I mean, anything is possible, right?
Yeah. Anything. Yeah. That's interesting. Could be anything.
Could be anything.
Mm.
All right. Well, that's we'll leave the news there and we'll get on and get into our show. So it's time to engage.
Okay. Picard and Jurati explore the Picard family house. Picard realizes that Jurati's subconscious is trying to indicate the number 15, so they figure that they have until the 15th to stop the change from happening. Like you do. Picard finds Guinan, who's about to leave Earth. She doesn't recognize Picard and just wants out. Yada, yada, yada. Picard talks her into hanging out for 3 days to see what happens and gets her to introduce him to the Watcher. Seven and Rafi spend the whole episode tracking down Rios, who's in an ICE detention center. Yada, yada, yada. There's a car chase. Jurati and the Borg Queen do a little bonding, witty fast talk. Yada, yada, yada. The transporters and the comms work just in time to beam out Seven and Rafi from their car chase. But then Jurati puts the Queen back in her hole anyway and walks away. Guinan drops off Picard with a bunch of creepy mind-controlled guides. Picard gets led away to meet the Watcher, who looks a lot like Laris. Then quick cut to a Q scene where he says some stuff meant to be creepy, but then he snaps his fingers and nothing happens. So that's even creepier, I guess. Credits.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll move swiftly along and let's make it so. Okay, so some of the main credits for this episode. This episode was once again directed by Leah Thompson, who we talked about last week. So, best known for her role in Back to the Future. So again, time travel stuff being very relevant here. But in terms of writing credits here, what we've got is a teleplay by Juliana James and Jane Maggs, based on a story by Travis Fickett and Julia James. So just looking at some of their previous credits, we'll start with the story. So Travis Fickett is known as a writer on shows like MacGyver, Nikita, Terra Nova, and 12 Monkeys. So has some notable credits there to his name. Juliana James, her previous credits in terms of writing go back to another show that I think is absolutely brilliant, a current show, which is Superman and Lois, which is a modern take on the Superman mythos and story, which is obviously being forever evolved, just like Star Trek. So she's been a writer and executive story editor on that show. I strongly recommend checking that out. That is really good. And obviously is now working on Picard as a staff writer, and also has written an episode of a upcoming TV series called Blood and Treasure. So that's Juliana's credits. And Jane Maggs. Jane, again, has worked on a number of films as actually supervising or consulting producer. But in terms of writing, her credits include the TV series Cardinal, which again is a great show if anybody's not seen that. Bellevue, Little Dog, Mary Kills People, Annie with an E, and The Man Who Fell to Earth TV shows prior to getting involved in the writing staff for Picard. And then obviously looking at the guest stars outside of our regular cast and crew. So here we have actress Itu Agayeri, who plays a younger version of Guinan in this episode. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but I think she did a fantastic job with this, even though in some ways it might be problematic, but we'll talk about that. But her credits include TV series, guest starring roles in Unforgettable, Elementary, The Blacklist, Master of None, Carol's Second Act, 911, Lone Star. So plenty of acting credits to her name as well. So there you go. That covers the creative staff and guest stars for this week's episode. So what do you think, Pete? Are you thirsty?
I am thirsty. Shall we?
I think you should ask for it.
Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
There we go.
Yeah.
Mine's actually coffee black, which is a bit more Janeway, I guess. But
mine is English breakfast, room temperature.
But, there we go. There we go. So this is the little point of the show, if you're new to this, where we talk about any kind of Easter eggs, references to other Trek out there, bits and pieces like that. Pete, as I'm always talking, would you like to go first?
Sure thing. So first and foremost is Kirk Thatcher, the original punk on a bus in California from Star Trek IV, reprises that role in this episode as punk on a bus. I rewatched Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, to see if he was playing the same song. But it sounds like he's not playing the same song. The band did a reimagine of the song 35 years later, because the lyrics in 1984 were like, we hate you, we hate this, we hate everything. And the lyrics in this episode were 35 years later, we still hate you, we still hate this, we hate everything.
Yeah, no, you are right. Yeah. I mean, Kirk Thatcher is a lovely guy. He was an associate producer on Star Trek
Muppets
and various other things, and got involved. I've actually been on I'll have to put a link down below to it. I have been on a live stream with him before.
No way.
Yeah. I was a guest on a live stream to talk about Star Trek 4, and he was the special guest. And
that's awesome.
Really was a generous and lovely guy. So I was dead chuffed to see him back. And you're absolutely right. The song that he wrote actually for Star Trek 4 as well was called I Hate You, and this version is I Still Hate You. But I did think it was great how they kind of juxtaposed it, and instead of him being given the finger like he did to Kirk and Spock, he actually apologized.
I like that he checks his neck collar, right? Because it's like he has this sense memory of the nerve pinch.
Yes.
And he is now wearing a studded dog collar, but he still checks it and is like, "I'm sorry." I just like.
I mean, it's blatant fan service, this one, but I I had a fondness for it. I actually kind of had a bit of a soft spot for it, but I just think it's nice that they brought him back.
I think it's nice that they brought him back. I think they played it pretty well, and so I didn't hate it. I actually liked it.
Yeah. I got a little picture there of him. From both.
Yeah.
Kind of wearing the same gear and everything.
He was wearing a neck collar in the original. Wow, I missed that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I thought it was awesome. Okay, what else did I write down? They apparently La Sirena has a cloaking device. Sure. I mean, it doesn't make any more sense than La Sirena being a Confederation vehicle.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into all that stuff,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
The 10 forward bar, this time we really get hit with the street address, the street name and the address. So you see it is 10 forward, which you had picked up on the first episode or second. Yeah, first episode. And this time they caught the rest of us up. And then I don't know if this is such a huge thing, but it's not Star Trek related. But the guy who picks up the pit bull from Guinan, did you recognize him or no?
I did not, no.
Oh, okay. His name is Brian Quinn. He has a TV show in the US. I guess it's not international, but he's like a comedy guy in the US, and he's pretty funny. He's also sort of like remotely tied to the Kevin Smith universe, I think, because they're all New Jersey people. Yeah. And one of the things I found out from his Instagram feed is that character that he plays has been in the MacGyver spinoff and a couple of other things, because apparently the the writer there or whoever is a friend of his and has put Dale into other shows in the exact same costume and everything.
I love that sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose if this is contemporary, that could make total sense, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was just I will say that I did not get to watch this episode until sort of like late Thursday, early Friday. And when I just checked Instagram Thursday morning, Ito Agaye, sorry, I don't know how to say her last name.
That's
Ito,
correct.
Brian Quinn, and Kirk Thatcher had posted on their Instagram feeds Thursday morning that they were in the episode. And so I was like, oh, wow, like you've just ruined a bunch of stuff for me. I really wish you guys hadn't posted that like first thing Thursday morning. Yeah, the episode was live. Like that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, as we don't get it till Friday anyway here in the UK, I really did appreciate you warning me. You did send me a text to say, be careful of spoilers on social media.
Yeah. Thanks. Because it wasn't even, like I think like irresponsible spoilers totally are just fans posting stuff about their day. When these people are doing it to promote, I feel like you gotta, like, that's just beyond the pale. Like you gotta know that you gotta wait a little bit. Anyway, so that were the things that were in this episode. There's a couple of things that are really missing from this episode that I would have expected, like any sort of reference to Time's Arrow, the Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, and I saw none of those. But we'll talk about that next. What did you see?
Okay, so ones, obviously you've mentioned most of them. We got the punk on the bus, obviously, and stuff, and you've mentioned the Time's Arrow reference, which, well, there isn't a reference, but I've got
no
a
reference
there of Whoopi from Time's Arrow, which I'm sure we'll get into that. But in terms of actual references and whatever, I've got a picture there of Guinan pulls a shotgun out from under the bar, and she'd done a similar thing with a phaser rifle in one of the episodes, which, forgive me, I don't know which episode it was. As I said, I don't I kind of just pick these things up, and then, you know, I don't spot everything, so there are other things, I'm sure, but yeah, that was one. The other thing, and I don't know whether this is a, you know, a reference or a flesh out, or how to feel about it, but you know, I know as a British person myself, I know that there's always been a lot of talk about how comes this French captain has a very British accent, you know, and is played by this English actor. And you know, they do kind of address in this what I suppose one could say is an explanation of that, because when they go to Chateau Picard, you know, in this time period, it's still abandoned in 2024, and he says that you know, after World War II, the Picards moved to England, and it wasn't until, you know, centuries later that they came back to France. And of course, we see his mother, who has a very English accent, bring him to the chateau, right, when he's a boy. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether it is or not, but I suppose one could say it is a
That is the reddest of all cons. I'm sorry.
yeah, I know, but it might not even be. But I just thought I'd write it down, because I'm not sure. We talked about the bus punk. We've talked about 10 Forward Avenue. Okay, a couple of little things that I got, and then something that I didn't get, which I've you know, since read on IMDb. Is the one I did pick up on was Jurati mentions when Picard was figuring out that she subconsciously, you know, done the number 15 throughout, which is
Yeah.
a bit like Data did in that Loop episode, Cause and Effect, where
Yeah, 3 pips.
he set a subconscious routine or whatever. She calls him, she goes, "Listen to you, Dixon Hill." So that's a
yeah.
reference to you know, the PI that he used to play on the holodeck and appeared as in First Contact as well, right? So
Yes.
that I saw as a reference. The other thing, just because it's one of my favorite episodes and I'm obsessed by it, is one of my favorite episodes is City on the Edge of Forever, obviously.
Mhm.
And Edith Keeler works at the 21st Street mission, and when Guinan takes her things, you know, from the bar, from the 10 Forward bar, they go to the 21st Street mission with it. So again, I thought that was a nice little unspoken reference, you know, to old Trek. I do like it when they do that. And then
Yeah.
a couple of things that I've since looked up. I'm not going to take credit for these because I didn't spot them, but I've since looked them up on IMDb, literally as I was preparing slides for this episode. Was last week I mentioned the connection to the Deep Space Nine episode Past Tense, which also took place in 2024, although that took place in September 2024. We got a date in this one that it's April 2024, so it's before the Bell riots, which is the main plot point in Past Tense. But something that even backs this up further is the character Chris Brenner, which I've got a little picture of there in the middle, who was in that episode. Sorry, I should credit who the actor was. Played by, bear with me, sorry, this is the thing when you're doing it live. Played by Jim Metzler. He played the character of Chris Brenner, who is the one that meets up with Dax in that episode. And he is kind of a you know, a sort of Bill Gates type character, a unionist, yeah, that's kind of you know, helps the opposition for the Bell riots and the Sanctuary District and all of that sort of thing in that episode. Well, the paper that Q is reading the Los Angeles Times, from 2024, and there is reference in that to Chris Brenner anti-union protests and stuff. So again, I do like those subtle little Easter eggs, but it does kind of tie it into this episode a little bit, and I do like it when they bother to go to that level of detail. So yeah, but I'm sure there are others that I probably haven't mentioned. In fact, I'm reading one now off of IMDb, and it says that the book that the girl is reading at the end when Q is there is a Dixon Hill book written by Tracy Torme, and Tracy Torme wrote the episode of the Next Generation, which included the Dixon Hill character. So there you go. And this is not me. This is me reading off of IMDb, which we know is always 100% correct, right? So there you go. There you go. A little bit of cheating there this week, but a lot of this, obviously, when I put these slides together, I am desperately scrambling to try and find pictures on the internet that I can use. And I did actually spot that one because there was a photograph linking it to that story. So there you go. I don't think there are any other. Well, there probably are other Easter eggs as well. Blatant and subtle. But I mean, okay, very, 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 very subtle. But I noticed that Picard in this was wearing a burgundy top with a zipper at the collar, which is a bit like his, the uniform in First Contact and Nemesis and those films. It kind of reminded me a bit of that. Again, whether or not that's actually on purpose, we know these. Everything has to be thought about when it's a film. Like I used to say to film students, everything you see and hear, regardless of how much in the background or how brief, is intentional. So I am sure that somewhere some costume person thought that would be a great little idea,
Yeah.
And good on them. So
all right,
you ready to move on?
Yes, let's.
So tell us about this, Pete.
There are 4 lights, right, is where we discuss our predictions on where this might be going or what might happen next. And so we need to, I'll own up to the fact that I've been wrong twice now on my prediction as to the Watcher. And I mean, 3 times if you count the time I went back and said, no, wait. But it was neither Soong or Guinan as the Watcher. It does appear that the Watcher is somebody who is being portrayed by the same actress who played Laris.
Yes.
But it's obviously not Laris because they don't have Vulcan ears. Sorry, Romulan ears. But yeah, so sure. And this is someone who has mind control abilities for some reason. Yeah, so we'll have to see what that is.
Fair enough. So do you think then, I mean, it was your theory that we would see Brent Spiner as some sort of ancestor of Soong?
Yeah.
Do you still feel that Brent Spiner may yet appear?
I do, and I do like that thought that the thing that goes wrong has to do with genetic engineering, right? And so the Brent Spiner or the Soong dynasty would make a lot of sense to be in there. So I believe it. Yeah, I guess I've been wrong so many times, though. I am sort of gun shy. I'm not putting a lot into it, but I think so.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't have many theories. I mean, as you've correctly said, we've got actress Orla Brady back, who obviously plays Laris as a Romulan and potential romantic interest for Picard this season. But we see her, as a human in Earth on 2024. So it's I don't really know. I'll be honest, I don't really know where it's going, especially that thing with Q at the end, involved in the Utopia project that we talked about last week. But obviously his powers don't seem to be working. I've got a little picture there of Cisco and Bashir, because I don't know, I still would really love it if this did somehow tie into the Bell riots from past tense somehow. I don't know whether it's going to. Obviously they put some sort of loose subtle Easter eggs in there, but whether it's going to be any more than that, bearing in mind that happens some months on from when this episode is supposed to be taking place. And of course we've got the ticking time clock thing, haven't we? They've discovered that they've only got 3 days or whatever to sort this. So but yeah, I don't really have any other predictions. The only thing I did notice, and again, I'm only saying this because of what they did in well, of course, because we don't have Paramount Plus here in the UK, I have no idea what's been going on in Star Trek Discovery season 4, most to my annoyance. But in season 3, we did have the appearance of the Guardian of Forever, which is obviously a reference again to the city on the edge of forever from the original series. But what I noticed is when Orla Brady, that's sort of the Watcher, when the Watcher grabbed Picard and they kind of disappeared into a square, there was it was filled with fog in that tunnel, a little bit like the Guardian of Forever. I again, I don't know whether there's any possibility that there's some sort of connection or reference there, but it was one of the things visually that I thought. I know the portal is round and they go into a square, I get that, but it was just the fact that it was foggy and and whatever. I just wondered whether has that got anything to do with it, and is it remember the Guardian took on a different appearance in well, it was just a voice in the original series, but then it was that actor from CSI, what's his name, Paul
Guilfoyle.
Guilfoyle, who was a representation in that one. I'm just wondering if Orla Brady is a representation for Picard to recognize, but obviously she couldn't have pointed ears because she's got to exist in Los Angeles 2024. Whether or not it's actually a Guardian of Forever connection, but I don't know. By the way, I couldn't find a picture of the Guardian of Forever in time to put that up on there.
That's all right. No, that's a great connection. I love that thinking. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a bit kind of, because I don't really know where they're going, which is of course a good thing, but I can't help my little headcanon. What would I, especially as a filmmaker and whatever, you can't. I think that's the thing. I think when I mean, this is a much bigger topic, which I won't go off on too much of a tangent, but I think when you're everybody's got headcanon, fans have headcanon, we've all got it. But I think when you're a creative yourself, whether it's a filmmaker, an actor, or a writer, or whatever, whatever you do, you kind of have your own, well, I would do it this way if it was me, if I was fortunate enough, kind of thing, And I know you go through it as well, right?
Oh no, I think most of my frustration with Picard so far, season 2, even season 1, has been that they're doing it and I would do it a little bit differently. And so that frustrates me.
I know. Well, that's the perfect inroad to draw a line, isn't it?
Yeah, so let's do that.
The line must be drawn here. Okay, so this is where we get into what we really thought. So I'm blabbering all the time, like I said.
You say that every week, and I think it means that I end up speaking more. But okay, here we go. I'm going to start with my most petty things, and then we'll get into the things that are probably more of a conversation. Number one is, I don't know if you get this in the UK, but on Paramount Plus, every week we get a last week on Star Trek Picard, and
Yes.
you get that too?
Yeah, we get on Amazon Prime. You get the option just to press a button and skip
Okay.
it completely.
I do not get that option.
But,
And it
yeah,
was like,
but we do get a recap. Yeah.
it was 2.5 minutes this week. And
Oh
I was like,
wow.
my man, if you need 2.5 minutes to recap, like you could have done all of last week's episode in 2.5 minutes. If I was cutting last week's episode, it would have been 2.5 minutes long. And to be honest, this episode also would have been 2.5 minutes. But okay, that's like minor quibble. Minor quibble number 2. Don't bring in that Elorian time sickness bull, because that is garbage. I hated it.
Oh, remind me. Sorry, remind me. What was that? Sorry.
That's like how Picard started to win Guinan over, was he said something to her that she had said to him 500 years in the future, and then that made her barf. And I was like, yes, it's making everyone barf because this is stupid.
Yeah, that's a bit of crappy.
Yeah.
And has
Also,
that ever been? That's never been established before, anyway, has it?
so I watched all of Time's Arrow to see, because that would have been a very important time for it to come back, right? I
Yeah.
did not watch yesterday's Enterprise, because that is another point where it could have come up, but I do not remember it in there either.
Definitely not in that one. Yeah.
So I was like, more manufactured drama garbage. And it's not landing. Third thing that made me angry was the whole number 15 in Girardi's subconscious. Like the gigantic plot hole in that you could drive a bus through is that last week they said, oh, Picard is just going to be talking directly to Girardi's subconscious, right? So you cannot say that the only thing that Girardi was communicating with for parts of last episode is what is now secretly communicating with us. Like that frustrated me to no end. And it also, I feel like really, what was the point of that? The only point was to have this like time pressure, and the only reason you needed the time pressure was so that Picard would have a driver to get Guinan not to leave the planet. But like, you shouldn't have needed that, because my number one anger point issue with this episode is that they completely ignored the events of Time's Arrow, where 200 years before this, Guinan met Picard.
Yes.
And so what should have happened, number one, was that Guinan should not have been recast. It should have just been Whoopi Goldberg, because I see no reason for it. It was Whoopi Goldberg in the 1700s. She could have done it. It would have been fine. And then when Guinan shows up, or Picard shows up in Guinan's bar, she should go, oh crap, it's Picard. What are you doing here? I did not think I was going to see you for another 300 years, right? Or because she, like, in Guinan's timeline, she saw him 200 years ago.
We'll get onto that, but
okay, that made me mad. And number two, if you watch Time's Arrow, when Data says to her, I'm on a starship, she's instantly like, whoa, what do you know? Where are you from? Tell me everything. I am not used to foreigners here, right? But then in this episode, when Picard is like, hey, I know that you're an alien, she's like, here's a gun. I hate you, right? Let's have violence. And it's like, what is going on? That makes no sense for this character. Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah. All right.
And so that like, it just felt like they wanted to manufacture difficulty.
All right.
Instead of having, okay.
Before you get on to the next point, let's just address those ones. So
those are all my points.
So first of all, I wished Time's Arrow has never been one of my favorite Next Gen episodes, if I'm honest. I haven't watched it in a long time, and I did think, maybe I should rewatch it as part of the homework, and I actually didn't. So I've not seen Time's Arrow in a long time. And I'm really glad you brought it up, because I wonder whether this would be something that would bother you from the casting perspective. But first, this thing about, now, my understanding of the time travel mechanics here, okay, is because Q has put Picard into a different reality.
I got an answer for this.
That not change the way they would have met, and the fact that they wouldn't have met in 1893?
My first thought exactly, but then you have to remember that the reason Picard has traveled back to 2024 is because on the 15th is when the time divergence happens. Everything before March 15th is the timeline that leads to the Next Generation TV show as we know it.
Right. And again, because I've not seen Time's Arrow in a long time, they don't do anything in Time's Arrow that changes the present or anything. No, it's a
that's a complicated question. They
of course it is.
They don't do anything that has like an outward change that you see, like, you know, Riker shaves his beard or Guinan wears a different hat, right? What they do is that Data's head, if you watch, like, the thing that Time's Arrow does is that Data's head is 500 years older than the rest of him, because his head got caught in a time loop where it went back to the 1700s, 1800s, and then got separated from his body. His body came back to the 25th century, whatever it is. And then his head has to catch up. And then they put the head back on and get Data back. But that's, so, like, do they change the timeline? Yeah, they say that there's an android head buried in a tunnel underneath San Francisco. But do they like change the timeline? Not really.
Okay, I really do need to go back and check that one out, because I've not. But okay, so that could be problematic then straight away.
It's hugely problematic.
Okay, that's one thing. I thought you might bring the casting up, because I was surprised. I thought we were going to see Whoopi Goldberg again in this show. Obviously, you know, they explained why she looks older in the 25th century when we catch up with her at the beginning of this. Of course, we know she was pulled from the Nexus in the film Generations, which again was still played by Whoopi, but which would have been fine, because again, that's long after this. But the thing that messes this up in terms of the casting is indeed Time's Arrow, because Whoopi Goldberg played Guinan in Time's Arrow, looking like Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg, and here we've got a different actress, which I have to say, you know, let's be honest, apart from the gender and ethnicity, it's a really hard buy that she's going to be Whoopi Goldberg. However, I have to compliment the actress, because I think she did a fantastic job of her mannerisms, her body language, her delivery of the lines, and all of that sort of thing did make me believe that could be you know, a younger Whoopi Goldberg, even though she didn't look like a younger Whoopi Goldberg, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Did you feel that? I actually thought her no? Oh, okay.
I did not feel that way at all. Okay. But I understand, I think, what you're saying. I was I honestly, like, I felt like that they wanted the Guinan character to be resistant to Picard, and they wanted to have Picard win the Guinan character over. And so they manufactured that dynamic. But I think that the characters of Picard and Guinan have never had that sort of conflict, right? About trusting each other. They have had conflict, but it has never been like they just have always sort of the way it's been played is that there are these two souls who feel this deep connection, and we don't quite understand why that is. But like Time's Arrow started to hint that like, oh, these two people know each other through time and space and something larger, right?
Mhm.
And so then to have this relationship that is like a safe space for both of them, that's how I feel it's been presented in the 1700s and in the 2500s or 2400s. Um, and that's a relationship that we've already seen in this show and we're invested in. To then say, okay, well, now it's the 21st century and they have a completely different relationship. And it's like, well, okay, but why? Why?
Mhm.
And I never understood that, right? Like
Mhm.
Guinan's bit about her frustration with humanity, I was
Mhm.
like, okay, that makes sense, right? Like
It does.
it's a little bit virtue signal,
Well,
right?
I thought it was very, in terms of the writing here, as I said, I thought even though physically she's quite different to Whoopi, as I said, I thought her performance was good, but in terms of the writing, I did actually think that this bit was incredibly heavy-handed when
Mhm.
she said that nothing's really changed in this century. The only difference is instead of wearing hoods, they wear suits. I did like wince a little bit at that because I just thought that from a writing perspective was a little heavy-handed there in terms of the, like you said, the virtue signaling. But
Yeah.
that did pull me out of it a little bit. But that wasn't, as I said, that wasn't any criticism of the actual performance itself. That was more down to kind of the writing side of
Yeah.
it for me.
Let me say that like I've got nothing against the actress. I've got nothing against her portrayal.
Yeah.
My big issue is that um I feel like the writers just were like, we got to take a hard right turn here. So we're going to take a hard right turn and catch up, catch up, idiots. Right. And like
Yeah.
that stuff, like that's what I think is the worst part of Star Trek. And if you look at all of the Star Trek episodes and or storylines that make me the angriest,
Hmm.
it's when it's when the writers are just like, "Yeah, we're going to do this thing here because we want to." And
Yeah.
so that's really why I hate all the mirror universe stuff is because
Mhm.
it makes no sense. And it's just writers being jerks. Oh, yeah, I can rail on the mirror universe anytime, any day. Um, but that's like, it's just garbage. And I feel like that's what they did here with the Guinan character, uh, because they wanted to manufacture anger between Picard and Guinan.
Mhm.
And like just like I can sit here and in 5 minutes think of storylines that are more compelling.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
right? Like there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
thousand other things they could have done with
Yeah.
this episode, and this is what they chose to do. And like if you want to make, the socio-political point about
Mhm.
like what is Guinan's experience sitting in America for 200 years as a alien observer, like yeah, I'm all for that. That's a valid message. Why does she have to be mad at Picard to do that? I don't get it. It takes me out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like the Guinan being upset, frustrated, and saying I'm out of here, great message. And like it could have been something, they could have just played it 100 different ways and still gotten that point across without it needing to be like, oh, Picard knows exactly who you are, even though you're played by a different actress, but you have no idea who Picard is, even though the man looks exactly the same now as he did in the quote 1800s, right? Like
Well,
literally, he
I was gonna
looks
say
the same.
nearly.
He looks the same. Yeah.
He looks a little older, but yes.
Ugh, you know,
It's
couple hundred years will do that to anyone.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, exactly.
like really, he looks the same. I don't understand why they did it.
Right.
I just don't. It goes back to my big complaint last week, which was manufactured drama for
Mhm.
no point, and that's what I felt they were doing here. And I don't know, when you put that in an episode that's got the manufactured car chase that
Yeah.
leads nowhere,
I was gonna say, talking about hard right turns. Yes, we've got to
Yeah.
talk about the car chase, which
Which was pointless. I mean, I don't get it. It's like they, uh, you know, I didn't understand it. They, theoretically broke into the car to find Rios's location on a computer, which is removable.
yeah.
Um,
No, you're right. I mean, Raffi and Seven got to have a car chase while Rios got to sit in a jail cell, basically,
yeah,
for the whole episode.
yeah, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. The car chase, the Rios cell thing. Like, as an American, I have complicated feelings about ICE detention centers.
Right.
And I will say that, like I wish I could feel like they were exaggerating conditions in there or making them worse than they are, or doing a ham-fisted effort of making a political commentary on the situation. I personally did not feel that way, right? And so
Yeah.
it was a uh, it's a difficult thing to watch when you're like, yeah, no, that all rings true to me, and I can't say I agree with it. Um, and so I 100% agree. It's a bad situation that's being handled poorly, um, and when they vilified the ICE agents in there, I was like, okay, well, again, you're doing it in sort of a uh, the word that I want to say is comical, and I don't mean funny, but I mean sort of animated, right, or over the top.
Mm,
And
mm.
yet, I
Yes.
still think that the reality of the situation
Yes.
is probably worse.
Yes.
And so then there's this weird sort of humor moment
Hmm.
in there where Rio starts to rail, and then gets tased and falls on the floor, jiggling, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there's a
Well,
weird place to
no,
input something comedic, and if you're trying to play this seriously, you've failed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot to unpack there. And I said I only watched it the once, but my feelings when I was watching this was, okay, let's before we get into the serious stuff, let's deal with the lighter stuff. So the car chase, okay, ridiculous as it was, and the fact that it made no sort of story sense, I can kind of understand why they threw that in there, because they needed a bit of action in what is otherwise quite a talky episode. So it was a way of having a little bit of some second unit car stunts and some action, and it's almost that thing. This could have almost happened in Star Trek 4: A Voyage Home, but didn't.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It was one of those. It was one of those scenes, and I can kind of see why it was in there. And it was a bit cheesy and a bit silly, but kind of fun, right? But on the more serious stuff, which the show is also trying to tackle, what I think here, and obviously we've credited the writers and stuff at the beginning of this, and respect what they're doing and their work and reference some of their previous work. The thing is with television is, and it has been for years, these things are written in a writer's room,
Yeah.
by committee essentially, and they're broken, and then they go through showrunners and everything for approval. What I do think, generally speaking, about the writing of new Star Trek, and I hate it when I have to say that, because I know there are a lot
Mhm.
of haters out there about Star Trek and where it is in the current landscape and all of this. But there is a difference, because it's made for a different audience now. Although I do appreciate the homages and references and connections to old Trek. I do like that. We've talked before about the fact that they use a very different vernacular, including profanity, which again
Yeah.
goes against everything. If you watch Star Trek Voyage Home, for example, it goes against that whole thing. But what I thought and it's bad that I was thinking this whilst watching it, so it proved it was kind of pulling me out of the drama. What I thought is Star Trek, right back to its early days in the 60s, was always a commentary on contemporary social issues of the time. That's what, that's very much what Star Trek is. And I think, Star Trek is a good place for it, bearing in mind that Star Trek takes place in a, alternate optimistic future that we could get to, as opposed to something like Star Wars, which I always think that stuff should not be anywhere in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Right. So I agree. Star Trek is and I hate to use the term platform, but is a better platform for it. And it's always been there. However, sorry, I'm going off a lot here, but
no. I love hearing it.
But what I feel is, say what you will about, I know there's people out there that have issues with Brannon Braga and Rick Berman and, some of the writers and whatever, again, from that era, from that 90s era of Star Trek. But everything was incredibly well written. And if there were reflections, if it was holding up a mirror to society, I sort of felt like it had been well enough written and it was done in such a way that, me as a 10-year-old boy could just enjoy it as a bit of sci-fi action, but somebody a bit older, could see the message in it, and it was a little bit deeper written. Whereas I think the word that I thought when I was watching this was it was thinly written. I feel that the right, it's almost like the show's very well made, but you almost think, damn, it's almost like it could have done with another couple of drafts before they agreed on this shooting script. And I've thought that not only with this, I felt that with Discovery as well. And obviously I'm getting older all the time as well. I don't know whether that's got anything to do with it, but yeah, sometimes I just feel that with all due respect to the writers, I do sometimes feel these things come across as hurried and come across as a bit thin. And I know we've talked about this before, and I felt it was very apparent in this episode with heavy-handedness in terms of the dialogue, rather than something more subtle, but that still is impactful and makes a point, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to shut up because I am waffling now. I kind of know what I mean, but I'm not sure that I'm articulating it very well because I'm not rewriting myself.
I think you've done an admirable job of sort of stating your opinion there, and I agree with you in principle. What I would say is that I think that there's a lot of TOS, TNG, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, right, that are not heavily written, right, or and that what we remember from those are the best moments, and that there are a lot of moments that are equally as ham-fisted or cringy as what we're getting in some of Picard and some of Discovery.
For sure. There's always been bad episodes, bearing in mind that you had like seasons worth, of 25, 26 episodes per season. So you had a lot more of it than, we've got more now in terms of individual shows, but obviously it's fewer episodes and fewer seasons. So yes, I get your point totally there. And even our beloved Enterprise,
our beloved Enterprise, like is a very, like, season 3 is very much I think not veiled as to what they are grappling with, and so there's no way to watch that without
the War on Terror was the thing.
Excuse me. There's no way to watch
because it was made in between 2001 and 2005. So absolutely. But,
so that's
Until
like
Manny
right there.
Koto came in, and then he started making references more back to the original series, which made sense because
Yeah.
timeline-wise, that would be the successor to this. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, so I think, yeah, like I don't want to be too down um, on new Trek, to use your word,
Yeah, oh,
in that.
sorry, I do hate that expression, by the way,
No,
because
no,
I
no,
don't
no, no.
agree with those haters necessarily. But there is a difference between.
Yeah,
Well, Trek has always evolved. It's like James
Trek is
Bond;
always
it's
evolving.
evolved
Yeah,
with the times, right?
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
so I think the point that we need to make is that like there is good Star Trek and there's bad Star Trek in all different times, and I think what you and I are both saying here is that what it comes down to is that it's rarely the performance, it's rarely the production value, although maybe sometimes it is the production value, but what it boils down to is the writing and the scripts, and that it's it is unfortunate when we watch the episodes that could have used a couple more passes, right?
yeah.
Like could have
Well,
used a better writer's assistant to say like, hey,
yeah.
why are we
I mean,
doing this?
I mean, it's a mixture. Don't forget, there's two things going on here. It is a mixture of that, and I do think there's an element in there of that. But likewise, it's like we were alluding to earlier, which again was completely off topic. But when I mentioned about how, as creatives, as you and I would both love to be in the writers' room if we could be so lucky. Yeah, on one of these shows, or
Oh my
making
god.
it, or acting in it, or whatever would be, amazing. And I do think that maybe we have an extra critical eye on it.
Mhm.
Perhaps I don't know.
Yeah.
I, I know a lot of the real, the hardcore fans, and like I always say, I'm a fan, of course, otherwise we wouldn't be
Mhm.
doing this show. But likewise, I'm not an aficionado of every single episode of every single series and all the expanded universe of novels and all of that sort of stuff. Um, but I do like it that they do make effort to connect those dots sometimes as
Yeah.
well. So, but it's that thing. The more they dilute it, we talked about this last time. They're trying to leave no gaps in the time period at all, right? They're
Yeah.
they're, they're,
Yeah.
they're just going to keep filling it.
Yeah.
And in terms of nitpicks that aren't about anything but just wound me up. And again, they did this because it ended up being a plot point. But I don't know about you, but when Picard first goes to see Guinan, obviously,
Yeah.
he's wearing, as we've already said, the burgundy top and the grey jacket and all that to blend in. But he's got his bloody comm badge on his
On
jacket.
his
And
jacket.
that drove me mad. I was like, why are you wearing that? That should be in your pocket. And of course, in the end, it ended up being a plot point, which again was a bit bloody lazy. But
Oh yeah. Did you know that they
yeah,
had energy cells?
yeah,
Right? I
yeah.
didn't know. Okay.
No, there was that, and like you said, the cloaking device thing,
Yeah.
which again was like a homage to the Klingon bird of prey in Star Trek 4, and
Yeah.
makes sense. But again, the other problem I've got, okay, this is a little nitpick, and this is really geeky, so bear with me. But when they arrived in the late 80s, the first thing that Spock says is, our ship may be I'm paraphrasing the exact line, but basically he was saying it would be detectable by satellites and space monitoring of that period, so they cloak immediately, not just to be invisible but to be off radar as well,
Yeah.
right? But in this one, okay, this takes place more in the future, 2 years from now, where the technology is going to be even better than it is now. With drones and
Mhm.
satellites everywhere, right? They not only crash, in France, but they spend some time there before they discover that conveniently there's a cloaking device and activate it. So surely the ship would have been spotted coming into the atmosphere anyway, right?
Oh
And
yeah, would have been
you know,
spotted. And if you think about what Picard says, he takes the controls So anyone following its trajectory would say, "Hey, that didn't follow the laws of gravity there. That ship has its own propulsion system."
There you go. So there's an
Yeah.
X-Files episode happening right now that's
Yeah.
investigating
But it's
the
French, so they had to take a break to go get a baguette. And
X-Files. Yes.
the X-Files. Yeah.
But no, that's a silly geeky thing anyway. But
Yeah.
and any other comments, thoughts, nitpicks, or whatever on this episode?
I feel like I have thoroughly voiced my displeasure at so much of this.
We've
I would
gone a
love,
little bit longer than usual
yeah.
actually today, which
Oh, well.
speaks volumes. I'm just trying to see, by the way, we didn't get any emails, did we?
I didn't see any, no.
No. Okay.
So, yeah, all I can say is that there's so much in this that I really wanted, so little of it that I really got, but there are still some good moments here.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and
it's fun. I'm not going to say
fun.
it isn't fun. Yeah,
but it is also at times infuriating, and also at times just sort of like, okay, I get it. Could we be slightly more subtle?
Yeah. I love that they put Kirk Thatcher in here. Ridiculous as that is, I did kind of enjoy that.
Oh, I thought that was perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, that guy would still be on a bus 35 years later.
There you
Still
go.
be doing it. Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well,
Alrighty.
shall we? Forgot to give this pips.
Oh, actually, we haven't. Yeah, sorry, I've jumped ahead. Oh, who wrote these slides? Me, and I've jumped ahead to open the channel. There you go. Yes. So our pip rank rating system. So sorry. What do you give this then, Pete?
This is I'm not gonna, we've been on a steady downward trajectory, where I've gone from commander to lieutenant, but this episode is going to remain at lieutenant. I don't think this is worth a junior grade, so this is still a lieutenant for me.
Okay. I think last week I gave it a lieutenant commander.
I think so, yeah.
I'm probably going to stick with that because despite all of the things we've said and issues, I was still entertained. So yeah, it could be better for sure.
Yeah,
it could be a captain or a commander, but it's a lieutenant commander. So that's going to be my my rank for the second week in the row.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've already opened the channel.
So channel is open. I think we can say that if you want to get in touch with Let's See What's Out There, you can find us on social media at LSWOTcast. You could also send us an email, lswotcast@gmail.com. Excuse me. Please do, if you're finding this podcast on a podcast player, like, subscribe, give us a rating, as that all helps. And you can find me on Twitter at Too Many E's, TOOMANYEES. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, well, you're on the channel Home Media Minefield, so please do check out more on this. And also, let's also check out our Let's See What's Out There Plus episodes where we talk about Star Wars franchise. So we've got episodes on that as well. If you want to see some of my other work, I have another channel called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And there's some short films that I've written and produced and directed there. So, all these things I keep saying in this episode about being creative, you can check out that and see what you think about that. Be kind. Anyway, and also looking at recent and coming soon stuff. So, please check out the other work on this channel. If you do like us, as Pete said, give us a review, but also with this video, give it a thumbs up. That doesn't take any time at all. Consider subscribing, and if you hit the bell notification, you'll get told about all the different stuff coming. So in terms of past work, I'll put a link at the end. You may be aware that Star Trek the Motion Picture Director's Edition is coming to Paramount Plus. But I did a little while back my views on whether the current 4K UHD edition of Star Trek's 1 through 4 is worth the upgrade. So yeah, check out and see what I think about that there. You can see that icon there with a picture of me with much shorter hair. Yeah, so check
Handsome
that out.
devil.
And we've also got upcoming, I've mentioned that we have done shows based around the Marvel Cinematic Universe streaming shows, and there is one coming this week, the new Moon Knight series, which I know nothing about. However, I believe Pete and his wife know more about this, and we have other guests joining us that are more aficionados to discuss Moon Knight. So please check that out as well.
Yes.
But yeah, well, that just leaves me to say thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Keith.
To the audience, and well, we'll see you next time on.
Oh, hold on, we got to thank Neil Myers for our wonderful theme music.
We do.
Neil's work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com, and William McLaughlan. Sorry, I'm saying
That's
that
correct.
wrong too. It is?
It is,
sweet.
yeah.
For our excellent artwork, and William's art can be found at a link in the show notes.
Absolutely. God, we're on it today, aren't we? Look at us.
Crushing it.
Yeah. If you've got any other questions or comments or whatever, put it down in the section below and check out the links in the show notes. But for now, we will see you on the next Let's See What's Out There.
What's out there.
Bye for now.